We're here to make a new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Making news just for you. It's May 26 here in Seoul. I'm Shin-Yun, and this is News Generation, where we make the news at Arirang's very own open studio. Every morning, we'll discuss the top issues and latest current affairs affecting people in their 20s and 30s. Joining me in the studio is Walter Lee.
Lovely to be here.
And Park Ki-hoon.
Thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. All right, now both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. Let's move on to our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. Seoul Central District Court on Wednesday has rejected the arrest warrant against actor Yoo Ah-in on charges of using 5 different illegal drugs. Officials determined that Yoo is unlikely to destroy evidence or flee, as evidence has already been gathered and he has admitted to some of the drug charges. Yoo has been accused of illegally using 5 different drugs for non-medical purposes since 2020. The list includes propofol, marijuana, and cocaine. Moving on, Thursday was a historic day for South Korea's aerospace industry. Nuri successfully flew into space carrying 8 commercial satellites. The launch was supposed to happen on Wednesday, but was delayed at the last minute as engineers detected a minor problem. Fortunately, they fixed it quickly and Nuri was back on track for a successful launch. Lastly, when was the last time you went to the movie theaters to see a movie? It turns out the number of theatergoers in April was only 52% of the number that went around the same time in 2019. Survey platform SMCNC asked around 4,000 people from their 20s to 50s why they've decided not to go to theaters, and 8 out of 10 of them said it's because tickets are way too pricey. We're going to take a closer look at the third news items. Korea's movie theaters used to be very popular before the pandemic. The number of times a person would go to a movie theater per year was 4.4, which was the most in the world. But since people were afraid of catching COVID-19 and more OTT platforms and streaming services started showing the movies they wanted to see, many people stopped going to the cinema. Now, experts also found that the main target consumers, those in their 20s and 30s, would choose to go to art exhibitions or museums instead of movie theaters. And since the pandemic, we've also seen 3 price hikes for movie tickets. What used to cost $9 back in 2018 now costs around $11. And I would now like to expand the news feed to the studio. Ki-hoon, could you relate to this news story?
Yes, I can, of course. You know, $11, it's an expensive price for a movie ticket, but let's not forget that there has been a rise in cost of living overall
inflation.
In general, with, you know, food prices and even like loan interest. So paying that extra fee for me for a movie ticket was kind of like a luxury in a sense.
Sure.
So, but on the other hand, I still think, you know, this could be an opportunity for K movies to take the stage again and, you know, have that competitive edge over OTT platforms. And, you know, I love Korean movies, but these days I haven't really seen a really, I guess, entertaining one except the Roundup, the series, but I'm still looking forward to many other movies that are planned to be released very soon.
Yeah, I agree. Now that you can see a lot of different movies on different OTT platforms, unless it's really good or people are like, you have to see it, I don't think I would go to the theaters. What about you, Walter? Well, how would you read into it? And what do you think our generation, why do you think they aren't as excited to go to the movie theaters compared to, I guess, our parents' generation?
Well, I think it also comes down to technology as well. Back in the day, back in my day when I was younger, we didn't have flat screen TVs. You had a box TV that was very small, and obviously when you go to the movie theater, it's this massive screen with good quality. Yes, OTT platforms, I think, are probably the end to certain cinemas. I still think it's worth to go when there's like a blockbuster movie that's worth watching on a big screen.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I would go to the cinema regardless if it was like a drama movie or a comedy movie. I can sit back and watch that at home. I feel more comfortable there. But if it's like, example, a new superhero movie or a massive blockbuster action movie, I think it's worth maybe paying that amount of money. But they're not going to have that all the time now. But yes, I haven't been to the cinema in probably, well, 4 years, I think.
And can you relate to the fact that not a lot of people are choosing to go on dates at theaters?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, that used to be the old, oh God, I feel old when I say this, but that used to be what we used to do, right? Go to the theater, afterwards go for an Italian, but yeah, it's definitely changed now.
It definitely
what
has.
What do people do?
I hear they go to like different VR room exhibitions, art museums and stuff like that.
That's what's interesting as well, is that people are choosing to go to museums rather than go to the cinema. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
Can you relate to that?
No, I can't.
You said it's a luxury to even go to theaters right now.
Right, and I don't even remember the last time I went to a museum.
All right. We need to be a little bit more cultured here in the studio, I guess.
think so.
All right, that was our news feed for this Friday. Let's move on to today's discussion topic. This time of the year in Seoul, we see lanterns of different colors light up. Why? To find out, take a look at the screen. Lanterns fill the streets of Korea this time of year. Because every April 8th on the lunar calendar, Korea celebrates the birth of Shakyamuni Buddha, the founder of Buddhism. Korea and Japan are the only ones to celebrate it on this particular day, which falls on May 27th on the solar calendar this year. Buddhism was first introduced in the Korean peninsula in the 4th century. Since then, numerous scholars and leaders incorporated Buddhism to shape policies and traditions that are still found in our culture. Then the leading religion of Korea quickly took a left turn in the 19th century, with Christianity booming. Fast forward to the year 2023. Christianity is still the leading religion in Korea, out of which there are more Protestants than Catholics. But we're also seeing a growing number of people decide not to have or even give up on their faith, especially those in their 20s and 30s. Today, NewsGen looks at 3 questions. 1. Why are a growing number of young people deciding not to have a religion? 2. Does economic well-being affect religion rates in a country? 3. What does the younger generation think about overly religious people or that type of culture? Today we're going to be talking about religions, and let's first find out whether our panelists here in the studio are religious, starting with you, Walter.
So no, I'm not religious. I would be considered what they say an atheist. But I did grow up around a lot of Christians and some Muslims as well. In Australia, there is a lot of Christians in schools, and you also used to get taught about Christianity in public schools, even if you weren't Christian. I was even baptized as a child, but I never actually went to church. In Australia, and I know that we'll talk about this here in Korea, but like 43%, around 43% of Christians in Australia are Christian, and 38 are no religion. So it seems to be growing. But how about you, Yan? What do you follow any religion?
Well, some of you might know my English name. It's Grace, and as you can tell by the name, I am
Amazing Grace.
Yes, Amazing Grace.
And your Korean name as well.
Yes, 예수님의 means Jesus is grace.
Oh, so your Jesus is Grace.
Yes, exactly. So my family, we come from 3 generations of being Christian. So yes, I am Christian. But what about you, Ki-hoon?
You know, I was actually born into a Christian family. My mom's side was a very devoted, she still is, devoted Christian, but now I kind of became an atheist. I don't really have a religion right now,
Why?
I don't know, but I'll tell you later.
Okay, I want to find out.
Actually, I'll tell you
right.
later.
So both of you are atheists, but what about other young people in Korea? Ki-hoon, what's the most popular religion currently that's going on?
Currently in Korea, the most popular religion is Protestantism, followed by Buddhism, and then Catholicism. So surprisingly, almost 60% of the population in Korea don't have a religion.
60%?
Yeah, 60%.
Wow.
That's a big number, right? So we can say that, you know, being an atheist or becoming an atheist is the new trend, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And I think it's just that more youngsters are kind of becoming less committed to religious activities compared to the past.
All right, so 6 out of 10 don't have a religion, which is quite a big number. What do you think about that, Walter?
Well, I guess like it could be due to certain reasons of like not following a religion. So I think, you know, these days, especially here in South Korea, we're a very busy society, right? We don't have a lot of time to do anything for ourselves, and we want to spend quality time for ourselves, and going to church sometimes it just isn't an option. I'm sure it is all over the world, but definitely here in South Korea, religion plays a crucial role for the older generation, and therefore it affects their offspring, meaning, example, they might not approve of your partner if you are not Christian, Buddhist, or etc. So some people might not want to talk about their religion to certain people, or won't want to identify themselves because they would rather choose love over faith in some ways.
Right.
And for example, for myself, we actually had to lie to my mother-in-law and say I was Christian in order to get her approval to get married to my wife.
Wow.
And then after we kind of said, yeah, we lied. So yeah, religion is a very private matter to some people.
For sure. And let's dive a bit deeper and analyze the reasons behind that. For you two, I would like to ask why you guys don't have a religion, and why don't you speak on behalf of the growing number of millennials and Gen Z that choose just not to have faith?
You know, for me, I stopped going to church as I grew older. especially moving out from the provision of my parents, I had more, I guess, freedom to do what I wanted to do on a Sunday. But, growing up as a Christian in Australia, the church community, it's fairly big. So for me, from a young age, it was an opportunity to meet new friends, kind of, mingle and socialize. But then with many things in life, you kind of grow out of things. And that was the case for me. So especially living in Korea, everyone, like what Walter said, everyone lives a very busy lives. And usually on Sundays, it's considered like the red day, the rest day, Sabbath day for Christians. But I actually took that time to just spend time on my own, like quality me time, just resting, relaxing. And it came to a stage where going to church was a little burdensome because it was like an extension of trying to manage my connection, trying to, put on that good image, holy image. But it was a little tiring for me. So I just decided, to kind of just move away from being a Christian. But, there's nothing wrong with having a religion, but it's totally up to you, and it's a choice.
Yeah,
so I think, it's really up to the person as an individual to have religion. Yeah.
Even as a Christian myself, I can totally relate, especially since I'm working now. It's so hard to commit your very precious alone time on a Sunday to go to church. So I can relate to that. Now, what about you, Walter? What do you think are the reasons behind a lot of millennials and Gen Z like yourself becoming more atheists?
Well, from my point of view, like as I mentioned, I grew up around religion. Like I have both a pessimistic view and an optimistic view to this day. I was not forced to believe in a God, but I was heavily influenced from the people around me by like schools at the time were teaching it, as well as my mother having what I would consider like a baseline belief. She did say that she believes in God, but she didn't attend church. My grandmother, though, was a very religious person. We would say grace or pray before every meal when we go to her house or she comes to our house. So it was always around me. But so from an early childhood up until high school, I was sort of just expecting that that's the way life was. But once I got a little older and started to think for myself, and I kind of changed my opinion due to certain things that happened in my life. The world has proven that regardless of religion, race, ethnicity, gender, etc., there are good people and there are bad people in all these situations. So it really did change my mind of like, oh, I don't need to follow religion in order to not think myself as a good person in a way. However, my overall opinion is very similar to Kiwan's. It's your choice. If it makes your life better, then of course I support you in that situation. I have tons of friends who are of different religions, and I would never say to them, oh, that's silly, you shouldn't do that. I definitely support their opinion to live a happy and full life following their religion, as long as you're not harming other people.
And you know what, I would like to add my own little 10 cents in there. I think economic well-being also has to do with religion reliance, because whenever a country is not that economically well off, you see more people heading to church or their different religions because they need an outlet to rely on. Another thing is cults. Here in Korea, we've seen so many different content and news about different cults, and I think that built more stigma towards religion. Don't you guys think? I
definitely think so, especially with certain very infamous cults that are coming here in Korea. I mean, they make public news quite often. And it's very scary to see that there are so many followers, but some might argue, what is the difference between a cult and a proper religion? So it is very interesting here in Korea.
But I think that's the thing, because people can't see the distinct difference between what a cult and religion is. The stigma towards religion just builds up. And we're going to be including another millennial in our talks who also has something to say on today's topic. So it's not just millennials and Gen Z here in Korea who are choosing not to have a religion. A lot of youth abroad seem to be less reliant on religion for sure. And to break through any stigma or stereotypes people may have towards religion, Suwon Park has been managing a Christian channel on YouTube. There, he and his wife addresses a wide range of taboos or avoided topics related to religion to inspire more young people who are religious to live their life to the fullest and happiest. Welcome, Suwon.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, I would like to ask you the first question. Do you think a growing number of people in our generation are becoming less religious than the previous gen, or choose to convert their religion as they get older? If not religion, what is something a lot of youth find comfort in?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to organized religion, as we know it, like when we say religion, we usually think of these massive gatherings where people come and there's a stage and it's centralized. When it comes to that system, I think, yeah, definitely people are, or at least from our generation, the younger generation, are choosing to participate less in that form of religion. But when it comes to saying that are people becoming less religious, I think how I view being religious is just an extreme passion towards something, right? That's how people, even when you're not, talking about certain religions, like when you're like a diehard fan of a certain field, people call you religious. Yeah. And I think how we define religious is if you can like risk your life for that, then you're in the category of, yeah, you're religious now. And I think more and more people are getting even more religious. It's just the expression is being diversified, decentralized. I think that's one thing I definitely observe. And we have so much freedom right now when it comes to, venturing out, experiencing different things. We all have smartphones. So much of our content is being consumed from our smartphones. And it just, whenever you have a passion about something, you can just go and consume content about that. And I think that's changing a lot when it comes to diversifying your views and perspective. And I think that's a good thing. But definitely the religion as we knew it is definitely changing. And personally, I think it's changing for the good, for the better.
I find it really interesting the way you define, religious beliefs and like being a religion. I think it's really fascinating. It's the first time I've actually heard it talked like that. But do you think our generation is a bit more open-minded and accepting to people from different religious backgrounds? And why do you think this is the case?
Yeah, definitely. Our generation is a lot more open because I think our generation have seen the side effects or the negatives of organized religion, right? And you guys have been talking about that, mentioning that. And even like what you guys previously mentioned about movie theaters is the same thing. Like all these like systemic stuff that the older generations alluded to. Now our generation is seeing the side effects of that and the negatives of that. And now we're like, I think we have to discover something on our own. And so I think we're a lot more open to discussion. I think a format that was clear cut for generations, right now, our generation is in a very special place, I guess, a very special opportunity to be able to reshape and to kind of evolve from the past generation and what religion looks like. And so I think, it's definitely something I see when it comes to people being more open in religion.
Okay, Suwan, as a Christian YouTuber, you must have firm beliefs to share with others. What do you think speaks to the younger audience who generally tend to dislike religion?
Yeah, I think the things that people dislike from the religion that we know of is the duality, right? It's like in front of the stage there's one thing, and then behind there's a whole another thing. And you're like, people are so used to being treated with a mask, I guess. So I think younger generation, we're so we want to discover something that is real, what is genuine, what is authentic. I think these keywords are so important to the younger generation. And so when we, as a couple, so me and my wife, when we share our content on the internet, people love it because we're we're very real about it. We're talking about real emotion, what we go through every single day, you know, and just opening that up and being honest and showing your true self without having to think about, you know, like what will people think about Christianity because of me, or what would people think about my church, you know, all of that. I think like disconnecting from that and just showing people what is real, I think that's what really gets them.
For sure, because behind every religion is human beings with real stories to share.
Definitely.
All right, thank you so much, Swan. It was a pleasure to hear from you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Suwan.
Suwan. Thank you.
All right, and before we continue our talks, we're also going to hear from our global viewers, and we asked their thoughts about today's discussion topic. So take a look at the screen to find out what they said. Doina Arhar said, "I'm Orthodox, so are my kids and my family. In Romania, Orthodoxy is the main religion. I go to church on Sundays and Orthodox holidays, yet my kids go to church only on Orthodox holidays, weddings, or baptisms. Maybe they don't have enough free time, or it's the custom now." Max says, "Here in Sweden, the majority of people are culturally Christian since we celebrate Christian traditions and are often baptized and married in church. But the majority of people here are atheists or agnostics. I wonder if the same is true in South Korea today." Kokep Crocker said maybe religious themes don't resonate as much with younger folks. That's a major flaw in the application of very old texts to modern contexts. Translating across mass cultural shifts become difficult. And I think that's a point that Suwan also mentioned, right? We are seeing some disparity from the older generation to the current one. And now I would like to ask you guys a question that could wrap up our discussion topic, all right? So based on our discussion today, do you guys think our generation needs or can heavily rely on religion?
You know, for me, how youngsters view religion has definitely changed a bit over time. And it feels like having a religion is more of a choice rather than an obligation that was brought down from your parents or your background or growing up. And you know, also with the rapid development of media, technology, and of course the pandemic, access to any kind of religion became so much easier through media and our smartphones. So we didn't really have to be physically there to have that kind of service or any kind of those cultural ritual things on every Sunday or Saturday. So I think religious activity is not as prevalent as it was compared to the past. So I think. And we, as younger generations, are more individualistic. So I guess we want time on our own, and that doesn't really have to be, you know, being at church or any kind of different services. Yeah.
There's more outlets to rely on.
Definitely.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you say needs or can heavily rely on religion, I think it really comes down to the person because, as we know, life isn't easy. So it's very difficult, and sometimes we feel very lonely. And therefore, we need to look into certain communities to make us feel, I don't know, like we're a part of something or less lonely. And that's why many people do turn to certain religions because they feel like they're a part of something. But I would just, you know, recommend that most people, even though it looks enticing to do their research on their, you know, church if they decide to start going to church, because especially in South Korea, and as we quickly mentioned, there are a lot of false religions here as well, so you want to be careful. But I do think, even though as an atheist, it's very important to many people's lives, and if that's what gets them through the day, then of course they need it.
All right, and we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Walter Lee
Lovely to be here.
and Park Ki-hoon.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you next week. We are
News Generation.
이 세상이다